Hey guys, Liana here, playing more Bedlam. I'm playing more because I'm gonna try something a little different, again, based on feedback from people. The experiment with going back to playing games on this channel instead of talking about social issues surrounding games wasn't very successful. I got quite a drop in traffic. That was disappointing. It sucks when listening to feedback blows up and does the exact opposite of what you want it to do, but that happens sometimes. I'm trying again because someone suggested that they actually want me to talk about a topic while playing games, not just play a game. That is more difficult than people give it credit for because it's trying to focus on two things at once, playing the game and composing your thoughts. But I'm giving it another try because this is part of accepting feedback and having comments open and stuff like this. There is trial and error. Hopefully people have another kind of low traffic instance with this, then I'll just sort of decide that it wasn't meant to be and move on. But the reason I continue to pick this game, because it kind of ties into what I want to talk about today, which is how difficult it actually is for creators to get stuff in any medium that means something to them to market. And I'm talking about this because a friend of mine, an author by the name of J.M. Frey, is in the process of getting a book. It's the first book in a series, a fantasy series called the Accidental Turn series. The book itself is called, I believe, The Untold Tale. I think that's going to be the official title when the book goes out. Books sometimes change titles, and this one flippity floppity around a bit, but that's sort of been indicative of the entire process going forward with this book. And I've read the book. It's a great story. The frustration has been that the things I think make it great are the very things that people are not, I'll say, getting, for lack of a better term, about this story. And it's been frustrating for me seeing it. It's been frustrating for the author experiencing it. And the thing that's tough about art is you write a thing, right? You write a thing and you hope people like it, but you're not writing it for them. You're writing it because it's something that is an extension of your creativity. And that's not being arrogant. That's the reality of being a creative. You can't shoot. I screwed up. You can't write something that you don't feel is coming from a pure place. If you're writing something cynically to make money, it's not that it's not going to be enjoyable for other people, but it just eats at you in the long run, that you're not doing something that's really a reflection of you and what you believe. It feels dishonest. It feels like people are paying money and getting something you believe is shit. It's not your best work. And so every creative has the choice how commercial they want to be versus how true to their initial vision. And there are no right or wrong answers. It's different for every person who is crazy enough to try to create something that other people will then see. And it becomes heartbreaking when people just don't get what you're doing. And this book, I think, is an example of that. The thing I love about this story, and the reason I've chosen to sort of champion it, it's a story about a type of fantasy character that doesn't tend to get any love in fantasy books. I'm talking about that more bookish, gentler, less violent. Not that I dislike violence. You guys know I love the violence. But it is just, you know, a character that doesn't get a lot of. They don't tend to get the girl. They don't tend to be the center of a story. And the entire purpose of this book is that it's a story narrated by a minor character, because it's sort of anybody that reads David Eddings is sort of familiar with this concept of self-aware fantasy novels, but it's one of those. And it's I joke that it's David Eddings meets The Good Wife, which is a bit inaccurate, but that's what I think of in my head. But the things that people are rejecting are precisely the things that I really like about it. Why? Because the things that people are rejecting are the things that are different. And this is what makes being creative for a living so difficult. And I know there's a bunch of people around here talking about, oh, it's not that difficult. Chemistry's difficult, and math is difficult. Things in the English language aren't difficult. It's not true. It's not true. It is exceptionally difficult to try to create content that you feel has value in being made and that people are going to like. And the reality is that you have to feel like there's value in what you're doing because of the fact that people aren't going to get it. And if it's not important enough for you to write, you'll just crumble underneath the withering, ignorant criticisms that people give. And it's not so much, it's, for me at least, it's not so much a personal hurt as the reality that, how do I put this, that this happens all the time, and people complain about a lack of innovation, and people complain about this and complain about that. But the reasons we don't get innovative products are so glaringly clear to anybody that works in a creative industry. And it comes down to the fact that you will get your stuff published if a company thinks they can market it. Period. Not necessarily whether they think it's good. Did anybody involved in Twilight think it was good? Probably not. But they thought it was marketable. And that is a massive distinction that I think a lot of people don't realize. You know, sparkly vampires can't be crap, but very, very, very marketable in the current climate. And then 50 Shades of Grey, which started as Twilight fan fiction, and both these stories have this cipher female narrator mooning over an allegedly perfect yet dangerous male object of lust. And I personally, the older I get, the more I think the idea of an ideal man or an ideal woman is just ludicrous. I think this idea of ideals is not useful. People have different skills, and in our very complex, interconnected world, a lot of different skills are useful for a lot of different reasons. So this idea that a guy with a sword is somehow more desirable, or a guy who is physical is somehow more desirable than a guy who reads a lot or is imaginative, just doesn't make sense in the modern world. It's just not true. I mean, what's the point in telling stories about the jocks we all hated in high school when the people who are getting ahead in this day and age are guys like Mark Zuckerberg and, people who come up with things, who make things, who are creators, who are idea people. And that's sort of what's going on in this book for me. And get cute. And that's precisely what people are saying. Well, you could get all this other stuff if you just write the story about the lunkhead guy with the sword instead of the entire point of the book, which is telling stories about characters that tend to get no love. Because there is another element of this book, which is coming out, I believe, December 8th, she said. There will be more stuff on this channel about this. This is about the concept, not about the book itself yet. But the other thing about this book that I really, really like is there is a bad habit in fantasy. I won't call it a trope per se, because that gets messy. That word's been ruined, unfortunately. But there is a tendency in fantasy, because Tolkien did it, to treat strong female characters as something that should either be treated like a tragedy, as it was in Lord of the Rings, and this is where I think that the whole root of the phenomenon comes from. But they're either treated like tragedies, or these amazing female characters are built up just to be brought down. And that obviously annoys the ever-loving crap out of me. Not just for personal reasons, for the fact that, we squawk a lot about strong female characters and interesting female characters and all that noise, but there's very little actual understanding about what goes into creating a great female character. And so we end up with the same character over and over and over again, and we wonder why people get bored of that. And that's sort of what this book is trying to work against. I mean, the same phenomenon you find happens all the time in Game of Thrones. The thing I was talking about, going back to Tolkien, is the fact that Tolkien treated Éowyn's strength, her ability to fight, her desire to actively get involved in the war, as a tragedy. Now, people may be going, what? Because it's not in the movies. It was stripped clear out, and I think that was a good call. But in the books, it's undeniably there. And that, obviously, when I was a kid, I'm like, well, this is bullshit. Because Éowyn was one of my favorite characters, and this idea that, it's a great tragedy that a woman would go to war. Well, it's a tragedy when anybody has to go and commit violence, and it's a tragedy whenever, anybody has to do things that are bad for the greater good. And I'm not quite sure why we're supposed to believe that it's somehow worse because women are supposed to be these natural nurturers, which, is horseshit. But this book flies in the face of that. I'm trying not to give away too many spoilers because I don't know how much I can say. But these are precisely the things that made the book worth writing, and these are precisely the things that make the book worth reading, and these are precisely the things that various agents and reviewers and things like that are saying, well, it should have been about the lunkhead meathead guy. And I'm like, what? no, the entire point is that it's not about that guy. There are valid, viable types of men that aren't physically violent for a living. Masculinity is not about violence. And it's tough when you hit these brick walls, and then these creators have a a dilemma in front of them. It's, do I write the shit that everybody's telling me to write, which is, accepting criticism, that whole paradigm that everybody's just mental about these days? Or do I go, no, this isn't what I want to write. This wasn't the purpose for me writing. This isn't what interests me. I'm gonna go tell my stories, not the stories other people think I should be writing. And this is very important in the debates we're having about video games right now, because I don't think the brouhahas are about really social issues or anything of the sort. I think it really comes down to how much right do consumers of media have to tell creators of media what to write. And that's a very big issue when you're doing things for profit, because the customer is always right clashes with, the reality that this is art, and this isn't selling furniture. It's not selling an interchangeable product. I mean, the shorthand for this problem in games is, we're not selling bleach here. We're selling an artistic product, and we have executives who cut their teeth selling cleaning products, marketing games. And I think this is, obviously I come down from my own experiences. I saw this in TV, that we were held back in our show, which got great ratings, but didn't pull in a ton of money because people didn't know how to sell it. And people think, oh, it's all about ratings. It's all about ratings. It's actually not. The profitability of a TV show is based on a very complex soup of variables that include ratings, but it's also about what sponsors the station has a relationship with, the talent of marketers, the tolerance for risk among advertisers at any given time, a whole bunch of factors. And creatives are caught in the middle of this mess. And what this means is that, creatives would like to write something amazing and awesome and meaningful and affirming and genre defining all the time, but you'll go broke that way. And so there's a lot of give and take. There's a lot of how do I put this? You do two crappy projects to build up the money to make one good one. And that, if you can manage to do that, you're ahead of the game in a lot of ways, because you've managed to create that one good one. But the problem is we live in a hypercritical society now where people are like, well, the last two things sucked, so they're a sellout, or they're all these names that people who don't understand what you have to do to actually get something to market say. And the reality is that these people aren't sellouts. You need to sell. That's a reality of the market. And it's hard to see, especially people that you think are exceptionally talented, going through this, because I think the book is great, and I highly recommend, like I said, there's going to be more content on this story, because I think it's great. And I think I said to her, I think you'd actually have better luck writing the stuff you do in gaming than in prose fiction, because I think that gamers are more open to the stuff that you do. Literature, it's literature, and so it's very hedged in. It's very rigid in what it will accept and what it will embrace. And, you know, when you're writing genre fiction, you've got this double challenge in front of you. You know, I personally think the stuff she writes isn't out of place in a lot of video games that are on the market, not just the, you know, socially aware stuff, just games in general. I think there's a lot of similar themes and a lot of different types of heroes and a lot of variety in that way. And I think that's great, and that's what I love about video games, but it really hammered the point home that it is important to talk about what we like and don't like, but it's also very important to respect creator freedom and creator rights, and the fact that we can say, I would prefer this, but we don't have the right to demand things of creators. So it's an ask, don't tell kind of thing, essentially. And I think that I think that content publishers on the whole need to be more and this, I'm telling them what to do. No, I just think okay, not need to. It would lead to better product. How's that? If content publishers had a greater tolerance for risk. We're not going to get these innovative things if everything has to sell a certain number of copies and, you know, make a certain amount of money consistently every single time. That's just not the way the markets work. And, you know, I am once again very happy to be a gamer and be on the forefront of this, because we're having these fights in gaming as opposed to just letting it erode our market and erode the creativity market. So, like I said, I'm gonna try to get some more coverage on this story. Maybe, hey, a developer will want to pick it up and make it into a game, or maybe people will want to read it because it seems like something that interests them. Because gamers don't just play games. Gamers have a variety of interests, and I don't think we should pigeonhole ourselves. So hopefully that was thought-provoking and made you think. And, you know, I'm in this situation of, please watch this video, because if you don't, I'll have to stop doing gameplay footage, because it's just not worth the time to get less traffic. That's not the way to build a YouTube channel. And I wanted to talk about this now because I'm experiencing this sort of, oh man, I'm caught between what I want to do and what I need to do to get the eyeballs and the traffic and the money and make this worth my time. So I guess I'm in a place of intense sympathy for other people going through the same thing. So hopefully you like this video, and hopefully you got a little sense of the game. I want to kind of show you guys, well, I'm torn about showing you guys the late game stuff, because it does, I know what it's trying to do. I don't know how successful it's being at doing that, but I don't know if it's a spoiler, because there's kind of, I guess I won't do it, because there's kind of a neat moment at the halfway point that is best if you don't see it coming. So just take my word for it. If you want sort of a fun experience, but you know, give this game a try, but you sort of have to be prepared for things to get a little wonky in the second half. Okay? And it's a roguelike, so of course it gets harder and harder and harder to make it more likely that you will die. And that's something you have to be prepared for going in. Okay? Hope you enjoyed it, guys. Thanks.